The journey of an honest worker, from poverty to success. Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by green fields and tall mountains, there lived a man named Raghav. Raghav was known for his honesty and hard work. His family had been farmers for generations, but the recent years had been tough. The rains didn't come on time, and the crops failed. Raghav's family, like many others in the village, was struggling to survive. They had very little to eat, and there were days when they had no food at all. Raghav's family consisted of his elderly parents, his wife, and 2 young children. They lived in a small mud house with a thatched roof. Every day was a battle to make ends meet. His children were too young to understand the difficulties their parents faced, but they knew something was wrong when their stomachs growled with hunger. Raghav loved his family more than anything, and it broke his heart to see them suffer. He worked hard in the fields from sunrise to sunset, but no matter how much effort he put in, the fields did not yield enough crops to feed his family. One evening, after a long day of work, Raghav sat outside his house, looking at the distant mountains, deep in thought. He realized that if he continued to stay in the village, things might never improve. The crops were failing, and there were no other jobs in the village. He needed to do something different, something bold. Raghav made a difficult decision. He would leave his beloved village and go to the city to find work. It was a painful choice, but he knew he had to do it for the sake of his family. He had heard stories about people who went to the city and found jobs that paid well. Maybe he could be one of them. The next morning, Raghav told his family about his decision. His wife was worried. "How will we manage without you?" she asked with tears in her eyes. Raghav placed his hand gently on her shoulder and said, "I will send money back home. I am doing this for all of us. I promise I will return once things get better." With a heavy heart, Raghav packed his few belongings, a pair of clothes and a little money he had saved. His parents blessed him, and his children hugged him tightly. As he walked away from the village, Raghav looked back one last time, hoping that his journey to the city would bring a brighter future for his family. The city was unlike anything Raghav had ever seen. Tall buildings, busy streets, and the constant sound of vehicles honking filled the air. He felt a little lost at first, but he was determined. He asked around for jobs, but it wasn't easy. Days went by, and Raghav had no luck finding work. His money was running out, and he was starting to worry. Just when he was about to lose hope, Raghav found a job in a factory. The factory made machinery parts, and the work was hard. Raghav had never worked in a factory before, but he was willing to learn. The factory owner, Mr. Sharma, was impressed by Raghav's honesty and dedication. He gave him the job, even though Raghav had no experience. Raghav worked long hours, sometimes more than 12 hours a day, but he never complained. He knew why he was there, to give his family a better life. He worked with focus, doing every task with care and precision. His honesty and dedication soon caught the attention of his supervisors. Whenever there was extra work or something difficult to be done, they knew they could count on Raghav. Months passed, and Raghav's hard work began to pay off. The factory management noticed his efforts and promoted him to a supervisor role. As a supervisor, Raghav was responsible for managing other workers and ensuring that everything ran smoothly. The pay was better, and he could finally send money back to his family in the village. Each month, Raghav sent as much money as he could to his wife. With the money, his family could now buy enough food, and his children no longer went to bed hungry. His wife also saved some of the money to fix their house, which was starting to fall apart. Raghav continued to live a simple life in the city. He didn't spend money on unnecessary things. Instead, he saved every penny he could. His dream was to buy a house in the city so that he could bring his family to live with him. It wasn't easy, but Raghav believed that with patience and hard work, anything was possible. Years went by, and finally, Raghav had saved enough money to buy a small house in the city. It wasn't big or fancy, but it was a place he could call his own. The first thing Raghav did after buying the house was to invite his family to visit. His wife and children came to the city for the first time, and they were amazed by what Raghav had accomplished. His children looked at the house with wide eyes, and his wife couldn't stop smiling. For Raghav, seeing the joy on his family's faces was worth all the hard work. But even though he had a house in the city, Raghav had not forgotten his roots. He remembered the struggles of the people in his village, his friends and neighbors who were still living in poverty. One day, Raghav decided it was time to return to his village. But this time, he wouldn't go empty-handed. He had saved enough money to help others. When Raghav returned to the village, the people were surprised. They had heard stories about how he had succeeded in the city, but they didn't know he would come back to help them. Raghav gathered the villagers and told them his plan. He wanted to use the money he had saved to improve the lives of the people in his village. He helped rebuild the school, which had been in poor condition for years. He also started a small training center where young men and women could learn new skills, so they didn't have to rely only on farming. This way, they could find jobs in the city or start their own small businesses. The villagers were grateful to Raghav for his generosity and kindness. They had always known him as an honest and hardworking man, and now they saw him as a leader who cared for the well-being of everyone. Raghav's family was proud of him too. His parents, who had once worried about their future, were now living comfortably. His children had access to good education, and his wife had the security of a home both in the village and the city. Raghav had achieved success through honesty, hard work, and determination. But more than that, he had used his success to lift others. His journey from a poor farmer in a struggling village to a respected man who helped his community showed that with the right values, anyone can overcome challenges and make a difference. As Raghav stood at the edge of his village, Looking at the green fields and the distant mountains, he knew that he had fulfilled his promise. He had returned not just with money, but with hope and opportunities for a better life for everyone. And so, Raghav's story became an inspiration to many. His life was proof that even in the face of hardship, an honest heart and a determined spirit can achieve great things.